Hi again. This is David Bowles, and welcome to Human Meme. It's a podcast about how we learn and interact and share with each other. Today we're going to discuss pain and compunction, and it will come to you in the following ways: lies, betrayal, family, grief, morality, guilt, failure, and punishment. And as I say punishment, I'm trying to be very aware of popping my P's. Some listeners to this podcast want me to fix that. I will try to fix it. I'm on an iPhone, so if somebody knows how to stop popping your P's on an iPhone, I'm very happy to know. And I will try very hard not to pop my P's without peeing on pop. And speaking of peeing on pop, I'm reminding myself of something my mother told me when I was a very young child, that young boys who wet the bed at an early age are actually peeing on their fathers. I don't know if that's true. It sounds a little Freudian. And she wasn't talking to me. She was talking about my stepbrothers. I don't think I ever have peed the bed in my life. We were off track, but not really, because this is about pain and compunction. Peeing must be a part of it. My mother is coming up in a little bit. Hang in. We'll start with lies. Now, there is nothing worse in the world, really, than the basic lie, just how it lives in the world. It's so simple and easy to lie to anybody and everybody today. And a lie is a lie. Please, there is no such thing as an innocent lie, a little fib, a white lie. They're all the same. They're all just as terrible because the intention is to always deceive. April Fool's Day will live in infamy for as long as I'm alive, because the whole purpose and point of that day is to hurt people by lying to them. Now, you can extrapolate that argument and say, well, we lie to our children about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy. And I would agree that we shouldn't lie to our children. We shouldn't invent fantasies and pretend that they're real when they're not real. I have been told that I am no fun. But as a child, I can remember when I was told there was no Santa Claus, and it was actually, as I'm remembering this in real time, told to me by one of the stepbrothers who actually peed the bed. I wasn't supposed to know he was regularly peeing the bed, peeing on his father, but he's the one who told me there is no Santa Claus. I must have been, 5 or 6 years old, devastated. Next is betrayal, the ugly second cousin of the lie. And betrayal is a tough burden to bear, because betrayal always comes after trust. Now, people at work, they betray you, your boss betrays you, your coworker. Okay, you expect that. People aren't perfect. Who really cares? Your friends betray you, cheat on you, hurt your feelings. Okay, but really, who cares? But when you are betrayed by somebody that you love, that you are bound to in marriage, that is the worst. The breaking of the vow, the shattering of the agreement to love each other and only each other, along with the blatant refusal to renew the human covenant. Now, some will argue today that marriage has become as disposable as the white lie. And I believe it's true. I think people get married because it's easy and fun and there are tax reasons. But there are some of us who have been married for 28 years and who honor our vows and who respect our wives, and wives respect their husbands. And in the long run, that means something more. Because to not be betrayed is to really live. Family. I told you be coming right around to my mother again. Now, mothers betraying sons, husbands betraying wives, all part of this familial pain and compunction that we're discussing. Now, in my latest book, Mother Narcissus, which you can purchase on Amazon, if you want to read about it a little bit, you can go to bowlesblogs.com, read about that. You can go to bowlesbooks.com and do a little search for Mother Narcissus, and it's right there. You can read about the book and how things unwind, and find out more about how when a family member betrays you, yes, it hurts and you can let it go, but sometimes there are other factors that cannot be controlled, but the results you cannot uncreate. So the notion of pain and punishment in the family is very tightly bound into ancestry. Grief. Grief is something horrible and magnificent at the same time. And it's not even the point of view in which you're looking at grief. It is just the way it is and how it behaves. We must allow each other to have our grief. We don't judge another person's grief. If someone's pet dies and they are more upset about that pet dying than they are of their parent dying, that's not a grief that we care to judge, and we should not try to put down or misunderstand. Pets are the epitome of unrequited love. People are complicated. So when a pet dies, it's really a loss of pure innocence in many ways. I always tell people who are in grief, I cannot possibly understand what you're going through, but if you're interested, I am happy to hold your hand and cry with you. And people have taken me up on that offer. And when they do, it's really quite a nice feeling, because you know you can be a little bit of a help, even though you may not quite understand what's going on. I'm reminded of a friend of mine, a woman who lost her mother, and she was devastated by the loss. The death rubbed her into tempting an early grave. She lost her rudder, her navigator. She was devastated. She was suicidal. Our friends, we got together. We tried to salvage her, but she had kind of gone too far for the saving, so we were just trying to bring the bits of her back to get to a right life, in the hopes that some of the shattered pieces could be at least resembled back into a human being. I am currently studying the Wim Hof method online. Wim is W-I-M, Hof is H-O-F. He's from the Netherlands. He has an interesting program that deals with cold water therapy and deep breathing and hypoxia and oxygenation, and it's really very interesting. But he's most interested in all of these teachings about the soul and how we get to the soul and how we nurture the soul. And he believes you do it through these exercises, these yoga poses, and the cold water therapy. And as you get to know Wim and his process and his sources of inspiration, you begin to understand how he came to get here. His wife committed suicide. He was left with 4 young children who are now grown today, and they're all incredibly beautiful. And he didn't know what to do. His life had been ripped away from him. Yet he couldn't give up. He couldn't walk off the 8th floor balcony and follow his wife into death. He had 4 people who were young and relying on him to have a life. And so he started meditating, and through his grief and exploration and trying to find joy again, he invented the Wim Hof method of cold water immersion and proper breathing. And when he talks about it, he talks about it being circular, but it's a circle that, as far as I can see with Wim, has not yet closed. He has great success. He has wonderful children. He is still tortured by the grief of losing his wife. Now, will the grave save him and release him? We don't know. I am reminded of Anton Chekhov's wonderful play, The Seagull. And early in the play, Medvenenko asks, "Why do you always wear black?" And Masha replies, "I'm in mourning for my life. I'm unhappy." And then later in the play, Nina reads a bit from a script and says, "And this one universal world soul is me. Me. In me are the souls of Alexander the Great, of Caesar, of Shakespeare, of Napoleon, and of the least of leeches. In me, the consciousness of human beings has merged with the instincts of animals. All do I remember, and every life I live again in my own self." Now, in the world of the play, half the people laugh, ridiculous, what a fool, while the other people are very touched by the meaning and by the intention of the words. And what a wonderful, magnificent lesson for us today. That is the point of us. Not all memes are created equal. Not all memes are shared. Not all memes deserve consideration. However, you cannot know that until you share it. So if you believe in something, if there is something that affects you, that you find important, that needs to be put out into the world, don't be shy. Don't self-censor. Now, if there's something you really don't like, you don't agree with, you're not going to propagate it. But if there's something that has meaning to you, find a way to get it out there. Write a play, write a book, have a conversation, host a podcast. Get the idea out there into the world. And finally, to kind of put the cap on the grief section, I'm reminded of one of my favorite quotes from Deirdre of the Sorrows. It's a play by John Millington Synge. And it's a play about longing and loss and grief. And here's the line. "If the oaks and stars could die for sorrow, it's a dark sky and a hard and naked earth we'd have this night." Now, Chekhov and Synge are the pros. They are the pinnacle. They are what we always aspire to become. Now, continuing pain and compunction, morality, vital, ignored. I now have a newsletter called Mechanized Morality. It's a newsletter you are very welcome to sign up for. You can go to bowlesblogs.com and sign up there, or you can just go to mechanizedmorality.com, and that'll bring you to the sign-up sheet. And we discuss how morality has changed in the modern world, from what it used to be to what it is now. And I argue with you now that morality, doing the right thing, is painful. You get a lot of threats for doing the right thing. All the temptations in the world are wrong and against you. And when those who are in a power position, parents, role models, clergy, whoever, when they violate their moral state that we expect from them in the role that they hope to play in society, everything they touched and have touched is degraded and unresolved. Guilt. Guilt and grief tend to be kind of combined together into the same idea. We're cutting them. We're slicing the Gordian knot right now. Grief's over there. We talked about it. Guilt is now here. And guilt is powerful and glorious and gone. I don't think people hold a lot of guilt today. I think they think the idea of guilt is quaint. And I regret the passing of guilt. Guilt is still used as a standard in criminal prosecutions, guilty or not guilty. But in the everyday person, guilt is gone. A guilty pleasure? I ask, what is that? How did we come to decide something could be a guilty pleasure? It destroys the very idea of what you're trying to prove, that guilt is important, that a conscience matters, that doing the right thing over the right thing is the way we have to live a life. Failure. Failure is really a state of mind. And in my experience, other people tend to define what you fail at. You were supposed to do this, and you did that. You were expected to become this wonderful thing, and you didn't. So therefore, you have failed. I'm putting you down. You didn't live up to the promise of your life. Who do you think you are? You've met people like that, right? A lot of people in the world are like that, and it's because they're unhappy and unfulfilled, and they didn't live up to the promise of their life. But they don't hesitate to tell you what a failure you've been in your life. And when that happens, you just kind of smile and nod, and why argue with them? Let them think what they think. You stay on your path of righteousness. You manage the pain and the compunction in order to get through the next moment in life. Let the failure, if you have failed, power you. Failure can drive you forward. You don't even have to admit you failed. Just say, well, that didn't work out. I'm going to try this. I know that doesn't work now, okay? I'm going this way. Fine. It doesn't matter how other people try to judge you. I always say have 100 things in 100 pots. And that is the opposite of carrying all your eggs in one basket. It's important to have plan A, B, C, D, E, and F because you never know how many times your options and your choices will be taken away from you. Finally, today we end with the idea of punishment, which is probably a podcast in itself, but we'll touch on it today. In punishment, the body doesn't really matter. Only the mind is significant when it comes to punishment. You try to inflict punishment through pain in the body, but if the body doesn't matter, and it really doesn't matter, it's only the mind that can be really wounded, sometimes irrevocably. We created punishments as a society when moral guilt no longer engaged an immoral person to reform. Prisons are warehouses for misery. We want to control the mind, and so we punish the body. Pain is now monetized and incentivized. There is profit in punishment. The individual cannot survive the self against the state, and so we all lose our humanity in the unholy bargain of these unfortunate punishments. To resist a punishment is to fail expectation. To submit is to be rewarded with death. To know our own failings is everything. Thank you for listening. Be a human meme.